inevitably what happens is these people voice these complaints to their employer, they voice these complaints to their family, their loved ones. Well, they can't hear it. It's designed for them not to hear. Invariably what happens is the person says, well, I don't hear what you're hearing. It sounds like schizophrenia or delusional disorder. You need to see someone. And it's usually a loved one or an employer that ends up forcing that person in front of a psychiatrist. The psychiatric community has no knowledge of this technology, doesn't check into this technology. And further than that, if you look at MKUltra, most of the original mind control studies were headed up by psychiatrists. Many of the psychiatrists that did the original studies on mind control were presidents of the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychiatric Association the Psychiatric Association of Canada. These were, top-level psychiatrists in educational facilities that were taking CIA funding to progress this type of technology. So invariably what happens, the psychiatrist tells you the same thing that a family member would. I don't hear the voices you're hearing, therefore you're delusional or you're schizophrenic. And then the victim is further victimized by the psychiatric community. After a diagnosis like that, you usually lose your job, your family alienates you. It's a horrible technology, and that's one of the things that I was hoping with the book, the exposure, was to at least educate the psychiatrists that are within the communities that certainly aren't involved at a top-level position of furthering this type of technology, that are really just ignorant of the technology that exists to emulate mental illness.
I want to bring up a case or an incident, accident, or actually murder, if I put it that way, back in 2004 that happened here in Sweden. Our foreign minister, Anna Lindh, was actually murdered by a guy, Mijalovic, I think it was called, and he, when he was in court afterwards, he says that the reason for him that he attacked our foreign minister was because he was hearing voices in his head that urged him to do so. This is obviously just one case of many, many where we can see the same kind of pattern. We can talk about mind control and how some, it seems, agents are being used. That they sometimes they say that they hear the voice of God or something similar, and they can be in that sense driven to insanity to actually do something as well. And that's another aspect of this as well, isn't it, John?
It is, and actually what you're referring to is the creation of a Manchurian candidate, is what the term is that has been used globally. And for a great book on that, for people who think that this is conjecture or conspiracy theory, a physician here in Texas that is a close friend, Dr. Colin Ross, MD, wrote a book called The CIA Doctors, that is all based on Freedom of Information material that our government released on MKUltra, where the main goal was to create Manchurian candidates. Now, Manchurian candidate being an individual, like you spoke of, who is not necessarily an agent of the government, but just a normal citizen who can be remotely controlled to perform a deadly task, such as an assassination, and then, in the ideal situation, be reverted back to their original personality and know nothing about what they actually did. So by definition, a Manchurian candidate really is someone who can have multi-personality disorder induced, be put into a remote hypnotic state or a altered personality state to perform an action such as an assassination, then using a remote keyword, a remote electronic signal, or a remote visual clue, be converted back to their real personality, where they will have no knowledge and no memory of why or what they did.
If we look at satellites specifically, and is there anything that you know of in terms of systems that are being used, and if so, how is this being done? I mean, we've talked about kind of ground level stuff now as well, various technologies to project through microwaves, or if the use of cell phones or what have you, but if we talk specifically about satellites, what happens there and what goes on in terms of satellites, John?
Well, most of this technology gets developed at a ground level. The research that goes into it initially is all done on the ground using people that are volunteers. If you look at most of the military studies on microwave hearing, on directed energy, they're legitimate studies, and they are using subjects who have consented to the experimentation. Usually military individuals who really don't have much of a choice. They get offered promotions or offered extra money for volunteering in these experiments. Well, once they're developed on a ground basis and are found to work or have a military usefulness, then they're loaded onto a satellite platform where they can be used in a more widespread use. In writing my book, I spoke to a friend of mine who's two friends, one currently FBI, one's currently in the CIA, basically to ask them, has anybody commercialized this type of technology, the technology to attack with directed energy or to use the microwave hearing effect for mind control? What I was told by my friend in the CIA is that no one has commercialized it to where it can be basically purchased for hire. But he did say that he admitted having directed energy weapons such as ultrasound, particle beam, laser, and microwave energy on our current surveillance satellite platform. But he also said that it is a weapon of war for use abroad in a very narrow context of use. But if you look at the victims, these people are being victimized no matter where they go.
Right.
On a boat, on the ocean, on an airplane, in another country. It follows you everywhere you go. And there's only one technology that can do that, and that's satellite. And I've seen that personally with victims in Texas, where we have taken people onto very remote ranches where there's no cell phone coverage, out into the Gulf of Mexico where there's no cell phone coverage, and they still hear their assailants, and they still get attacked with directed energy. And most of us agree that, short of HARP, that satellite technology would be the only way to do that.
And how would it be possible to, well, this is very difficult, I guess, in that sense, but would it ever be possible for anyone on the outside who isn't experiencing this to actually hear this in some way? I mean, okay, we have to tap into the auditory nerve or something like that, and that's obviously very difficult to do, but would it be possible, do you think, to kind of monitor, or if you will, prove beyond the point, obviously, of the testimony of the person themselves that it's actually happening to them, John?
We're working on that right now, actually. There are two modes of audio harassment that we see. One is the microwave hearing effect, and that is the voices that one hears directly in their head. Now, there's a second mode of audio harassment that we're seeing, and I describe that in the book as ELF wave-based audio harassment. This differs slightly from microwave hearing. And this actually comprises the majority of the complaints. And these are people that are hearing their surveillors in vibrations around them. They'll tell you that I hear these people in running water, in an aquarium pump, in a vent fan, and anything that vibrates and can finish transmitting the sound. And it appears that is extremely low frequency wave based audio that needs a carrier wave once it is on the ground. And these people will describe being in their home, and they'll say, well, I hear them in my bedroom. When I walk to the kitchen, I hear them coming out of the compressor in the refrigerator. When I walk to the bathroom, I hear them coming out of the vent fan or a ceiling fan. The entire home is blanketed in ELF wave audio. That ELF wave audio needs a carrier wave, something that displaces air slightly for that person to hear. That's the one that we're trying to work up a system to record. We've come pretty close. We've actually had some success using gaussimeters, which are designed to pick up ELF waves attached to digital recorders and some very sensitive equipment to pick up the recording. Now, when it is coming in through vibrations in a vent fan, certainly you can put a recorder near the vent fan. The reason you can't record the broadcasted audio is it's in the background of the vibration. So a traditional digital recorder will only pick up the vibrations of the apparatus that it's near and not the transmitted sound that's within the vibrations. But we're trying to pick that up through ELF wave receivers, and we're having some success with that.
I want to ask you a little bit about what you think in terms of using this later on, maybe down the road, on a broader scale, on a broader populace, so to speak. We hear things like, Project Bluebeam, for instance. There is even speculation that the Spiral up here in close where we are up in Norway, that was also some kind of demonstration of scalar weaponry or potential HARP technology from the IceCat facility up in Norway. and the speculation here goes that this could be used later on down the road in unison with some kind of auditory hallucination